Good evening. Happy 2026, everybody. I hope you all brought your 2026 in with joy, love, peace, happiness. Hope you got some rest. My New Year's Eve was just, pretty laid back. Me and the kids were just, well, me and my son and my husband were just home, and we just, chilled and relaxed. So that was our peace and that was our joy. But today I'm going to be talking about just this housing crisis. I don't know if you all have noticed this in 2025, the amounts of people that have been evicted. A lot of people have become homeless for different reasons, not just one reason, but I want to focus on the main reasons why people are becoming evicted, and I'm going to leave some tips here for you all to prevent yourself from becoming evicted. I've been a housing caseworker, housing social worker, field worker for 14 years now, and we are seeing an increase in evictions. A lot of people have become evicted, especially those clients, people that are undocumented and haven't been able to work, and a lot of people afraid to go to work, and they have not been able to maintain and pay their rent, which is one of the reasons why people become evicted, for non-payment of rent and violating the lease. Having pets in the unit, disturbances, too many disturbances in the unit, too many complaints, and having unoccupied people living in the units. Additionally, a lot of people have become evicted and are becoming evicted due to the rise of rents. Landlords are increasing the rents everywhere. It's nationwide. I'm in Illinois, and the same thing that we see here in Illinois, I'm quite sure people see in Texas, Atlanta. You hear more and more stories throughout this different states of the number of people that have become evicted due to the increase of rent, non-payment of rent by lease violations, lack of affordable housing, and lack of funding, lack of rental assistance, because there is no more COVID laws, no more COVID protection to protect tenants, to keep them in their units longer, because the COVID crisis have reduced, amen, and things have gotten better, but that has caused a lot of programs to shut down because those fundings aren't available anymore. So what I'm encouraging people to do in 2026, if you are renting and you are already struggling to pay your rent every month, you're paying 30 and 50% of your income towards rent and you're barely making it. What I suggest you to do, from a personal, from my professional and my personal viewpoint, I believe that if you are coming to a close or to an end living in that property, you might want to relocate, and you might want to downsize into a unit that you can afford until you increase income. That might sound, kind of unrealistic to a lot of people, because some people might find it hard to find a new unit, or they might say that it's hard to find an affordable unit, or they want to stay close to the kids' school, or they want to stay close to their work. Sometimes you have to make things happen so you can have a roof over your head. So that is what I tell my clients. That is what I advise other people to do if they are in a lease and they cannot afford the rent. To prevent yourself from becoming evicted and not being able to pay the rent, I would suggest that you relocate and downsize and find something cheaper, until you're able to increase income and things is better in your household. I think that is a wise decision to make. It's a hard move to make. I know families don't like to relocate because they want to keep their kids in a certain district, but you gotta do what you gotta do for your family sometimes to keep a roof over your head. Okay. The second thing that I would suggest people to do, this is like a no-brainer. It might sound like a no-brainer, but a lot of people don't do this. But you have to get your priorities in order, your finances in order. You have to prioritize what you're going to pay that month to keep things going. And I think that putting your rent, paying your mortgage first should be a number one priority on your things to do, things to pay list after paying your tithes, after paying your offerings. Or, you know, some people like to pay yourself. You have to pay the rent, okay? I believe that paying your rent, shelter is more important than transportation, okay? What I mean by that is that's more important than paying a car note first. You know, it's easier. Maybe that might be hard. It's easier, or I think more workable or workaroundable to get caught up on a car note quicker than it is to get caught up on rents, because rent is larger than a car note. And I just think that it should just be a priority on your list, because a lot of people might say, well, if I don't pay my car note, I can't get to work. But if you don't pay your rent, then you're going to be on the streets. You know, you're going to be homeless, you're going to be apartmentless and nowhere to live. At least with transportation, you have public transportation, you have Uber, you have Lyft, you have those temporary transportation resources to get by until you are able to pay your car note. And you can work out things with your car note loan persons, but it's hard to bounce back from. It's hard to get caught up with rent when you get behind in 1 month, and then 1 month turns into 2 months, and then 2 months turns into 3 months, and then it just goes on and on, and then you have to start worrying about late fees. Okay. Another thing that I would suggest people to do is to abide by the lease. Okay. If it says that you can't have pets in the unit, then you can't have pets in the unit. If you have an emotional support animal, or if you have a cat, a dog, or a pet that needs to be living in the unit for mental and physical health reasons, then you need to get that stuff documented. Okay, you need to get it on paper to be able to show to the landlord, to be able to show to the property manager, to legally allow you to keep the pet in the unit. And if that unit is not working for you, if that landlord does not want to honor that, then you might have to relocate. I mean, I know that I got a cat, you know what I'm saying? And I was in a position where, you know, the cat wasn't supposed to be living in a place, and, you know, I had put our shelter at risk, and thankfully and prayerfully I was about to move in a couple of months anyway, so I was able to get out of that situation. But make things easy on yourself. See if you can find somebody to give that animal to that you trust, because I just don't think that people should be being put on the street because they violate the lease for having a pet in a unit. But there are ways around it to keep your pet in the house if you have a mental and physical illness. Okay. Lastly, what I'm going to say is shelter is important. Housing is important. It's hard to find an apartment. Especially if you're in an affordable unit. It's hard to find a place these days with the rents going up. So I suggest that you Do not move people into your unit that is not on the lease, okay? You're going to put your housing at risk. You're going to put, the place where you lay your head, you can lose your place for moving people in, unoccupied occupants that are not on the lease. I know sometimes we want to help our family and our friends out that do not have anywhere else to go. And I think it's okay to let people spend a night, 1 night, 2 nights, 3 nights. But when you start getting into days and weeks and months and years, and that becomes a problem, because when the landlord find out about it, that's a big issue. Or if you got a working landlord that will work with you, that would allow you to add that relative or that friend to the lease, then go ahead and add them on to the lease. But if that's something that you don't want to do, like I was in a position where I had an unoccupied person living in my unit, almost put me in jeopardy of losing my place. And my landlord was like, hey, either this relative gotta go, this friend gotta go, or you gotta add them to the lease, or you gonna get put out. I said, landlord, not adding this individual to my lease. So relative had to go. Relative had to find somewhere else to live. That was very, very hard for me to do, but you know what I'm saying? I had 3 kids and I was in an affordable unit and I was not trying to move, and I was just trying to help this relative out at that time. But thankfully and prayerfully, that individual was able to find somewhere else to go. So let's just recap. If you are living in a place that you already can't afford, I suggest that you relocate, downsize, find something smaller until you can find something else. Prioritize your bills. Make sure that paying your rent and mortgage, even though we're not talking about mortgage, I'm just throwing that in there. Pay that first after paying your tithes and offerings if you believe in that or whatever. Rent comes next, transportation after that, food after that, okay? If you have pets that are not on the lease, they're not supposed to be in the unit, you either have to find another housing alternative for that pet. But if the animal or the pet is there living in a unit because you have a physical or mental illness, then you need to find a way to make that legal, get it documented so you can keep the pet in the unit. And lastly, do not have occupied people living in your place. That will cause you to be evicted. You will violate your lease. So I hope these tips helped you. Please, if you have any comments, if you have anything to ask me, just put it in a comment box. I will say that a lot of people want to ask me more personal questions. They ask me questions and they want me to email them, or they want to email with me. Unfortunately, I do not have a business email, so I cannot communicate that way. But I would try my best to generalize, like answering your question the best way I can to try to answer your personal question that you might have. Thanks for watching, and again, Happy New Year. You all be blessed.